Today's podcast is on misinformation, lies, and just making news up. A curious occurrence occurred this electoral cycle, and the amount of misinformation, fake news, and completely made-up stories that were unleashed. This information leads to disgust, rage, and fuels conspiracy theories. An even bigger curiosity is how people fall for it. And why do people allow themselves to be conned and be manipulated by such stories? Misinformation has been around for a long time, and during any political process, it pervades and spreads like any infection. However, with virtually all of human knowledge at anyone's disposal with their handheld computer, how can such trash spread and become such a malignancy? The latest presidential race attests to this fact. Throughout human history, being educated, literate, with access to information was reserved for a privileged few. Now primary education is compulsory, and access to virtually all of human knowledge is in most people's pockets. Then why won't we question news, our beliefs, assumptions, and biases? There are several factors. First, our literacy rate is equivalent to a mid-level industrialized country. We are on par with Algeria, Belize, Burundi, Gabon, Swaziland, Tunisia, and Zimbabwe in our literacy rate. According to a study by the U.S. Education Department and National Institute of Literacy, we are only 86% literate. Another stunning finding from this study is that our literacy rate has not changed in 10 years, and that 19% of high school graduates are illiterate, and only 14% of our populace is, quote, proficient with reading. Thus, if you can't read or don't like to do it, you are more susceptible to misinformation. America, since its inception, has been distrustful of government, constantly fighting over states' rights and federal control, with a lot of violence against immigrants and blacks. However, belief in government and trust in its institutions is at an all-time low, with the growing distrust and disdain for college-educated professionals also increasing. All you have to do is look at the climate change issue. Congress's approval rating is lower than getting a root canal. Professional scientists, bankers, college-educated, quote, elites are hated and disbelieved by many in this country, and people who hold on to their beliefs even more stringently after hearing contrary facts is stunningly high. So where did this current wave of anti-establishment, anti-government, mistrust of institutions, and anti-intellectual come from? Many on the left in our political spectrum say that solving these issues requires more education. However, how does one combat ignorance through education when the person does not trust facts, oppose any other views, nor trust the professionals that are paid to scientifically test and produce data, or news organizations that has been around for 100 years, or doesn't even want to hear opposing views or even contrary facts? Sadly, much of this misinformation stems from conservatives. There's been an assault on liberals and the liberal media for decades. The current trend can be traced back to Ronald Reagan's rise to governor of California. Then, when Newt Gingrich increased the intensity of the rhetoric against Democrats and government when he became a congressman in the late 70s. In the 1990s, when the Democrats had control of the White House, he became more belligerent and extreme in his attacks of Democrats and liberals. He claimed that they were un-American, trying to dismantle the foundations of society, are socialists, and basically need to be expunged from society. These attacks perpetrated a worldview that is predicated on nationalism and conservatism. Unfortunately, these attacks won him favor, and he became Speaker of the House in 1995. His attacks and the venom that emanated from him are still in our society and has reached a crescendo with Trump's election to the presidency. So how does this vitriol have anything to do with misinformation, fake news, etc. during this past campaign? It's a contemporary springboard of distrust in the media and the educated. It has led to the rise of hyperpartisan Fox News and a large array of conservative media outlets from Rush Limbaugh to Breitbart News and Infowars.com. It's extremely ironic where the criticism from conservatives on liberals and all things that are liberal, mainly the news media and higher education, stem from being biased, propagating their own agenda, and destroying the fabric of this nation. The irony of this complaints is that these outlets misinform, lie, and perpetrate myths in order to maintain their relevance, income, and fame. Basically, they are committing the faults of what they perpetrate, of what they say the liberals are doing. Sadly, most of their viewers do not realize this and would never admit it because nobody likes to admit they've been used or deceived. Another factor in this anti-intellectualism is that many people feel that they have knowledge that is contrary to the mainstream. Yet this factor requires more and more outlandish claims to justify it. And sadly, they're basically wrong. In the scientific realm, as neuroscientist Daniel Levitt states, that we are, quote, hardwired to believe even with contrary proof, different viewpoints and different ideas. And what this is called in the science realm is belief perseverance. This is fostered by allowing emotions to rule over reason. He also states two types of thinking, fast and slow. Fast is for the flight response. It is for survival or simple reasoning. Slow is for more complex thought processes such as the scientific method. Conservatives prefer fast thinking as opposed to slow. Liberals are more attuned to slow thinking. Finally, Dr. Levitin states that confirmation bias is rampant with human cognition, but is more prevalent for people on the right. Another study has showed that conservatives are more likely to believe in fake news because it reinforces their worldview, whereas liberals tend to question more and will verify information. Due to this phenomenon, there are many more false news stories that cater to conservative viewpoints than liberal ones. According to research, conservatives appear to be more of what political psychology calls need for cognition. This need for cognition measures how agreeable people find critical thinking. And according to John Jost, psychologist at NYU, multiple studies book liberals are more likely to critical think than conservatives. So there you have it. Some reason why people allow themselves to get tricked by fake news, misinformation, and lies. Unfortunately, we won't challenge our views or biases, so I'm not hopeful that our fake news will dissipate, and I predict it will actually become worse until finally, maybe, we'll wake up.